Okay, hello everybody. Welcome into another one of these interviews for candidates running for seats in office in Charlestown. I still don't have, I've been asking everybody this. I don't have a snappy name or anything. Maybe if you have one, shoot me an email, Jeff, if that's possible. But
A snappy name for me?
For the series of interviews here.
Oh, okay. I got you. I'll think about that.
But this is, of course, Jeff Hynes, Ward 2, is running for Ward 2 council seat. How are you today, sir?
I'm doing well. I appreciate you having me on and the opportunity to speak to the public. And I'm doing good. I'm having a good day. It's great. It's beautiful outside.
Yes, it is. It really is. So I want to start here. This is where I typically start with everybody. Just kind of a basic, what got you into this? What made you want to run for council?
Sure. I get that question a lot, if you can imagine. I think I've knocked almost every door in the city, and I've been asked that question several hundred times. So you would think I would have this great, concise answer, but here's my best attempt at that. I've always sort of been a behind the scenes type guy my whole life, right? I think my friends would laugh at that because I'm a very loud, gregarious guy, but I usually behind the scenes getting work done. I never really saw myself running for council until this year. COVID has given me the space to do a lot of soul searching in my life, to really dig in and to make myself better and really invest in my family, invest in myself, and double down on my investments in my community. I'm a member of the Board of Zoning Appeals. I also volunteer to be a Girl Scout troop leader with my daughter. My son's getting to the point where I'll probably be a troop leader for him as well. But I was looking for a chance to do more, to be more involved. And I really have a fascination. I really like local government. I understand how important it is in our lives. I think a lot of people underestimate just how important local government is in their lives. My wife has been in local government for her career for 15 years. She currently manages a town in Loudoun County. So I've seen the process from like the beginning to like managing it, understanding it. I've assisted all along the way with, editing things and being a sounding board. And I found that the process is fascinating. So I wanted to be more involved. So I started to say, okay, well, how can I be more involved? And I realized that there was nobody running in my ward for my opponent. Well, right off the bat, I'm like, well, that's not right? You should always have a choice. That's the way this is supposed to work. And I said, let's go ahead and get involved, if only to give people a choice. But as I started thinking about the issues that were important to me, the big issue that came up to me, especially as I started to think about COVID and my family, was my family, right? I wanted to make a city that was great for my family. I wanted the downtown. I wanted to support the businesses we have and find a better way to bring more businesses so that we can do more here. We use the parks a lot. Evetts Run, we love that. And I want to keep investing in that so my family has stuff to do. And then as a member of the Huntfield community, I can tell you there's a big point of contention about a trail we were supposed to have for the last 20 years that connects Spruce Hill North to the high school, to us, down to downtown. And past council members have worked on that. For me, I wake up every morning, I walk 6-7 miles with a backpack on to get in shape. And it just hit me one day, man, I could walk downtown and back by now with coffee in my hand or something. So I jumped in the race just to try to build a better city for my family and to give us more to do here, so we didn't have to leave to go do things elsewhere.
You kind of touched a little bit on the idea of growing, and Charlestown seems to be growing, and Jefferson County as a whole seems to be growing. Are there things that you would like to do to enhance that? Are you for growth? Yes. Are you against growth? What's your position on that?
Well, I think being for or against growth is besides the point at this point, because to your point, the county and the city is going to grow. I mean, the growth is coming. We're located in such a sweet spot, right? We have all these job markets around us. It's so expensive to live there. We have such a good quality of life here for lower costs. People are going to move here. The developers are going to build here. So it's a foregone conclusion. But what we can do and what we should do as a city is try to help shape that growth to make sure that it benefits the city and it benefits all of our residents. So we had the NAACP forum last week, and one of the questions was about how are you going to handle the influx of new calls into the fire and EMS system? And as you know, the county already has an issue with funding that now. Well, the word is growth, and you're going to grow because developers are going to build. And I think that the city needs to make sure that as we build, we do it intelligently, and we require developers to help ensure we have the investments in infrastructure and investments in these safety programs to make sure that we can continue to provide a safe quality of life for all of our residents. So I think that's just a foregone conclusion, the growth aspect. One second. I said a whole bunch there, and,
No.
and
Well,
no, so I'm not anti-growth. I'm not pro-growth. I mean, I think we can grow responsibly and still keep the character that we have as a city. And I think that if we try to fight it as opposed to embracing it and try to shape it, we're going to come out worse on the other side. We need to work to shape it, right, and to prepare for it. And I think a lot of that's going to have to do with making sure we have the infrastructure in place to support it, making sure that we work with developers to make sure they help pay for their fair share. And, you know, I live in Huntfield, and look at my neighbors. We talk about it all the time. We have two streets, Union Ridge and Fairfax, Lord Fairfax, that haven't been finished in like a decade. Like they still need their top because the developer hasn't finished the neighborhood. And I don't see it happening anytime soon. So, you know, the plows come through and they tear the tops off the road. They tear the water pipe tops off. It's just a mess. They don't have trees over there. We have to make sure that as we grow, we don't find ourselves 10 years into a build and the neighbors who've been here for 10 years, they don't have a street, right? That's crazy. So that's the type of thing we need to make sure we're working on.
so if there was one thing that, maybe even more than one thing, but let's just say that you've been, you know, keeping up with the way the town has operated, and, you know, maybe attending town council meetings virtually or back when it was in person, whatever. Is there something you would change about what they have already done? Are there things, what are the things they can improve upon the most?
Well, I think there's a few things. First off, I want to start by saying I appreciate everybody that's on the city council, everybody that serves on a board. It's not like you're going to get wealthy doing this. You're not doing this because you're doing this because you care. And maybe we have different ideas, but I think ultimately we all have our hearts in the right place. We want a better town for our family. So right off the bat. So, but if you're asking me for some things that I think we could do a little better, I think it's funny because we're in a campaign, and so you're going to hear the terms transparency and accessibility tossed out. Probably every person on one of these interview series that you've done has said this word. But I do think we could do a lot better job of speaking with our neighbors and letting people know what's going on. A couple things come to mind. Here in Huntfield, we have noticed there was some building going on Augustine. It turns out, and I was like, well, what's going in there? So people are like, I hear there's going to be 276 apartments. I was like, okay, well, I'm looking at the zoning map and it says commercial. So it can't be apartments. So then we've had this discussion, and somebody chimed in from the neighborhood and said, no, they rezoned that last year. And that's what happened. So now it's neighborhood commercial and you can build apartments. Look, I'm not saying I have a problem with the fact there's apartments there. I'm saying that we live 500 feet from this new development that's going in, and nobody had a clue. And so that's a problem. Now, the argument could be, well, we had meetings and you can log on and watch the meetings at night. And, you know, technically, legally, they only had to tell the church next door because they were within 100 feet. I just feel we could do a much better job in 2021. You and I are being interviewed right now on Zoom, right? We have Facebook, there's Nextdoor. There's so many different mechanisms we should be using to communicate. And I have 3 children, and my wife and I work full time. Not everybody has time to get home at 6 o'clock and rush to a 2.5-hour meeting. But it doesn't mean they should lose their voice, right? This is still our city. We should all still have a say. So I do think we can, and I think we will do a better job at reaching out and including the community. Another really good example of that very recently would be the charter. I'm sure you're aware that there was an attempt to update our charter. It really needs to be updated. It's been like 105 years, I think, and it's well overdue. But the process, like even yesterday, I'm knocking doors over on Belvedere, and people are like, they're going to do what? That's on the ballot? Oh no, it was going to be on the ballot, but it's not on the ballot. I don't even know what you're talking about. It's like, well, that's crazy, right? Because it's like, you should know. And we should have included more constituents from the very beginning. It wasn't until we started asking questions at the end that concerns were raised. And then, some individuals had concerns about the legality of it. There's a bunch of questions raised, and ultimately it was tabled to be tried again at a later date. So now, unfortunately, we don't get it on the ballot this go round, which is, it's bittersweet, right? Because we need the charter updated, but we also want to have constituents and people have their voices heard. So, there's a balance there, and I'm really hoping that the next go round we include citizens much earlier in the process. So
Yeah, well,
transparent, sure.
yeah. Along those lines, though, too, what do you think? What do you think the government, the administration has done correct? What have you seen that you've liked? Going back, yeah, from for the past 4 years, we'll say, the council and the mayor. What do you think some of the biggest accomplishments have been?
Well, it's been a crazy 4 years. If we go back 4 years, there's been a lot of it's just been a lot of vitriolic politics in the area, coming out of Rockwool, coming out of just even national politics. I think it's really made it hard for consensus to be built. And I think at local government, it's more important than ever to build that consensus, right? Neighbors can get along and we can agree on local issues, but it's been hard. So when you ask what I've liked over the last 4 years, well, when you say the mayor, we had a different mayor just a couple years ago, and then Mr. Trainer was appointed. So there's just been so much going on. However, I will say there's been a lot of good that came out of the last 4 years. I do think that Charlestown now as an organization, as an economic engine for downtown, has been fantastic. 2020 was a hard year. We had to cancel a lot of events, but Liz Cook and the team over there, they do a great job really advertising the town, pushing people to get out and to work with our businesses. And as you can see, with a huge success this last year, the majority of our businesses have stayed open. Now, they've had to change their focus from growth to surviving, but they did. And as the town grows out of COVID, we're in a really good spot to keep growing forward as opposed to trying to dig ourselves out of a hole. So I know Charlestown now received a national recognition for their curbside pickup program. So that was fantastic. I think that we've made strides in our budget. I think we could do a little more on the transparency part of our budget, but I think we've done a lot more to make it a better budget. I think that getting off of needing the casino money has been a really good move for us. And I hope we can use those funds as they pick up as a dedicated source from some important programs that I think we need in the city. But we have had wins. I would not say we didn't have any wins. That would be wrong.
I've asked this to a few other candidates too. You mentioned the casino. What role do you feel the casino plays in Charlestown? I know it's very interesting. It brings people in, it brings money in. Do you think it's a positive or a negative for the town as a whole?
That's a great question. And I'll start with a story about why I'm here. And I moved to Charlestown, and I think about 11 years ago to buy my first house with my wife, right? It was inexpensive to live here. It was close to the jobs in Maryland and Virginia. And I think, like a lot of people, I had planned on buying a house and then selling it and moving back home, right? I think a lot of people come here with that in mind. And that was my plan for a while. However, there was a few events while being here, as well as some friendships that I've made that really made me fall in love with the city. One of those events would be the very first time I had a bunch of friends come into town. We went to Happy Retreat for a festival. We walked around Samuel Street, some of the old classic homes, went downtown, and they're like, this place is great.
Yeah.
And at the end of that night, I was like, nobody asked me, are we going to go to the casino? Or nobody asked me, do you want to go? Yeah, that's what happened. It was like, okay, there's a lot more here than just the casino. So I start with that story because I think the city has to have an image outside of just the casino, right? We have to work to make sure that when people say, where are you from? I'm from Charlestown. Oh, that's the casino place. No. That's the great place with all the historic sites. That's the place with abolitionist brew works, or you have all those great murals downtown. We need to develop that image because that is the future of our city, right? Maryland and Virginia, they're all starting to gamble themselves, and they're going to reduce our income from the casino. We have to do a better job. But with that said, there's no denying that it's a huge economic force in our region, and we benefit from that. And I think that we need to make sure we use any revenues we get from that in a manner that dedicates them to programs like fixing our infrastructure or investing in maybe other infrastructure like broadband to change the future of where we go economically, because we can't just be dependent upon them. And I think we need to have an image outside of the casino, But I would be a fool to not recognize the benefit that the casino being there brings to our town and to our community.
Another sort of hot, I don't want to say hot button, but certainly an issue that Charlestown has wrestled with for quite some time, of course, is rock wool. And do you have, where do you stand currently on its presence and it being there? Have you supported it? Have you been against it? What's your position on it?
Sure. First off, my position on Rockwool is that there's nothing the Charlestown can do. Rockwool's here. It's going to start up production in a month. So, I mean, it's a done deal. I think that the Rockwool has caused so much infighting in our county that it's made doing a lot of other things really, really difficult. And it's made a lot of neighbors sort of like, you go to like farmer's market last year and everybody was like friendly. And then, a year before that, and things changed. People got really tense and I didn't like what it was doing to the community. And so I'm glad we can sort of start putting that behind us because it's done. With that said, I was not a proponent of Rockwool. I can tell you from the beginning, being in finance, my first question that came up was, well, we're going to give them 10 years tax-free. And they're this multinational corporation.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, we have no money to pay for fire and EMS. Meanwhile, we have to pass a bond to build schools and we have to pass a levy to pay our teachers. But we're going to let this multinational company come in and bring in 120 jobs. I think at the time they were saying $15 an hour. And I challenge anybody to live in this county on $15 an hour. I felt that we were not getting the best deal for Jefferson County. So I wasn't a fan for that reason. Also, I wasn't a fan because if you look at the economic data in this county in 2018, we did almost $900 million in tourism in Jefferson County, largest county in the state. A big part of that is going to be Harpers Ferry Park. It's going to be the casino, the horse racing and things of that nature. Well, industry, heavy industry, and they can say it's light industry. We don't need to have that argument too. It's not. But industry like that does not really mix well with a tourism-based economy. So I don't believe that it fit into the community that we had built here in Jefferson County. So I was not a proponent of it at all. And I think that the product is necessary. I'm not a NIMBY type person, right? I'm not saying, oh, don't build it here. I just felt that where we were as a county and where we were going as a county, that product could have been made in Berkeley County. They have a huge manufacturing base, right? It could have went to other parts of the state that had a need for those jobs. And I think we can do better to invest in broadband, invest in things to bring higher paying jobs here because we have the knowledge base here already. And I think that sort of took away from that.
You're talking about community and sort of the way Charlestown is and Jefferson County is. One thing that occurred over the last year with the pandemic, and this was fairly new in Charlestown, was curbside pickup for restaurants and things to that nature to try and help restaurants stay in business as the pandemic unfolded. There were a few changes that occurred. Are you in favor of them? Would you like to see maybe outside seating for restaurants in downtown Charlestown? Would you like to see curbside pickup stay permanently? Did you have any opinion on that?
Absolutely. Actually, I spoke out in favor of curbside pickup being extended at one of the council meetings in the last month. I think we need to make it permanent. I shop downtown, I get downtown, and I can tell you that at no time did I feel that having those parking spaces set aside for that made it difficult for me to park and to get around. We had so many business leaders come out and support and say this was the lifeblood of my business in the last year. And I can tell you as a father of three, I remember my wife's like, let's go to T-Dogs, and get some barbecue. So I pulled into their curbside, I got my stuff, I was home. And she was like, look, she goes, I didn't have any chance to clear off the table yet because I was there and back. And, as we get back into a normal flow of things, I go to work, I come home, my wife goes to work, we pick our kids up from school and daycare. We rush home at 6 o'clock. You have to feed them, bathe them, try to love on them, put them in bed. If you can give me a way to go downtown and buy dinner from a local restaurant and then go home and I don't have to worry about finding parking, going in, waiting, ordering, I'm all for that. That's going to make our lives better as residents, not just help the businesses, but it's going to help us. Because otherwise, what's going to happen is people are going to get in their car and drive to Rankin to like Chick-fil-A or to Panera, and they're going to take those tax revenues and that business there. And that's not what we need, right? So let's be supportive of our local businesses. So yes, 100% supportive of the downtown parking issue.
So I have to ask this, and this after I ask this, we'll get to a couple fun questions, and then
Okay.
start having some fun with it. But if you don't come out on the winning end this time around, would you want to run again somewhere down the line, or even for something else like maybe mayor or something somewhere?
Well, that's a big question. Let's one race at a time, Colin. One race at a time. To be honest with you, I have knocked on, I would probably say almost every single door in the city. There's just a handful that I need to get to today and tomorrow. I've spoken to hundreds and hundreds of people, and I've had some really cool experiences. One time down near Evetts Run, this older gentleman started singing Country Roads with us, right? And we just sang it on his porch. And then I told him about some of my ideas, and he started singing A Change Is Gonna Come and by Sam Cooke. And he's like almost serenaded me off. And who gets those experiences if you're not walking around meeting people? So I loved it. And would I do it again? It's been hard on my family. I mean, it's been like every day after work. It's been on the weekends. It's been hard. So I don't know, probably would. I'm still interested in being involved. I'm still a member of the BZA. And if I don't win, I don't intend on not joining other boards. I do really want to be involved in the community. I think it's important. Mayor, that's like that's a lot more of a commitment, right? I don't think that my life would allow me to give Charlestown the time it deserves as a mayor, with me having 3 young children, a full-time job, and I do have other interests. I don't think that I could provide the work that Todd or Bob could provide on the amount of time they could do. So there's no way I could be mayor, but councilman, I'm certainly sure I could do that. Yeah.
Oh, well, in 4, 8, 12 years, we'll pull this up when you're running for mayor and say, well, I thought you said.
You said, well, come on, 4, 8, 12 years is a long time, right?
Things can change,
happen. Yeah. I could win the lottery and not have to worry about going to work all day.
All right, so I want to get to a couple of fun things. And I always start off with this because this is the most important thing to me. If you gave me one restaurant to go to in Charlestown, what would it be? What would you recommend?
One restaurant.
Yeah.
What are you in the mood for? No, that's a loaded question.
I'm a big meat person, like chicken and steak and things like that.
Sure, that's a good one. I was going to hear it, so let me give you 2 answers. One, I was going to say go to Abolitionist. Okay. It's not really as much a restaurant as it is like a pub / restaurant. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But you can get some solid food there that I love. I love their Fig and Pig pizza. They have a great beer. The atmosphere there is, and they do events where they have like wings and they do jerk chicken and they have food. So please, Abolitionist is a restaurant. But I love the atmosphere there. It's like the whole concept of a historically hip Charlestown is like personified in that place, right? It's just cool. You have the old feel. I love it. And Inkwells has amazing food, but to me, Abolitionist would be where I sent you. Now, knowing that you love meat and potatoes, steak night at Patty's, you can't beat having them roll the steak out. They will roll it out on a cart.
Really?
And you're like, oh yeah, man, me and my buddy did this. And you're like, okay, cut the steak here. And they're like, and then they'll take it back and you pay by the pound and you order like a beer or like a bourbon, whatever you're in the mood for. And it's great. And it was delicious. So highly recommended.
I'll have to try that. I didn't.
Probably post-COVID. I don't know if they're still doing it. It's been a while.
That's true. Well, speaking of COVID, a lot of people got into stuff during the pandemic as they sat at home or worked from home or whatever, and they came up with new hobbies. They took up new things. Did you do any of that over the last year? Did this time allow you to get into something pretty hardcore?
Yes. It's one of those things I had mentioned earlier. I sit around behind a desk all day long for work, and I like savory foods. So I was getting to the point where I was getting out of shape pretty bad. And so I decided to recommit to my health, and I started waking up every morning starting last August at 5 a.m. and I would smack a backpack on with 40 pounds in it. And I would just go for like 6 or 7 mile hikes around my neighborhood. Hence the reason why I really would love to have that trail that takes me downtown so I could buy some coffee at Siblings or something. And I lost like 60 pounds. And
wow.
Then I built the gym in my garage. And that's not a new hobby. I used to work out a lot, and but I get up and when I go for my walks and I come back and I work out, and it's given me the energy to keep up with my kids. It's giving me the energy. I think a couple weekends ago, I walked 25 miles knocking on doors once I counted up all my steps. And it's like, there's no way I was doing that last year this time because I hadn't put in the work. So yeah, I got more invested in my health, for sure. 100%.
Good for you. Did you ever want to do like a marathon or a triathlon or anything?
So I'm not a runner.
Okay.
I will sprint. I wouldn't, it's like, how do I describe this? One of the things I don't like doing is moving because I don't like carrying 100 million little boxes up and down stairs. It's too much. I want to just give me the big, heavy, couch and I'll carry that thing up the stairs.
Yeah.
That's sort of who I am. So not a marathon. One thing I was interested in doing, and my buddy and I, it's called rucking, who I got my buddy to ruck with me. We want to train for, it's called a 50-20 or like a JFK 50-20. And you have to hike 50 miles in 20 hours.
Oh.
And yeah, and it goes back. There was like supposedly that like, Teddy Roosevelt was like, we want everybody to be able to do this to prove a basic level of fitness. And you have 20 hours. And that's something I wouldn't mind doing. So we've been trying to train for that. So just
when would that happen?
When would it happen?
Yeah, if you do one.
Well, we were aiming for this fall, but I got really busy with this and other things. So I don't know. I'll probably give myself 9 months to train, and then and it'll be easy, right? I'll do it on like the CNO Canal towpath, right? It's flat. I don't want a bunch of mountainous hills,
Yeah.
Places with stopping points where I can tell my wife, meet me with Gatorades here, so I don't pass out.
That's interesting, huh?
Yeah.
What's your favorite album? Favorite album of all time?
Oh,
no, that's tough.
Man, that's really tough because I have such an eclectic mix of music tastes. So I grew up a little different than a lot of people. I'm the oldest of 9 kids, but we didn't all live together. So my mom had me and my sister Heaven. I'm getting to the answer. Me and my sister Heaven with my father, and then they split up when I was young. And we could talk about that another time. And then my mom and my stepdad had my brothers Kevin, Sean, Alex, Ryan, and my sister Sky. And my dad had my brother Chris and Nicole. So 9 of us. I bring this up because my brothers Kevin, Sean, Alex, Ryan, and my sister Sky are all half African American.
Okay.
So I grew up going to African American church. So the music tastes that I were around were different growing up, right? I listened to a lot of soul music, a lot of old Motown. I love that. But my stepdad, he loved like your classic hard rock, like Ozzy Osbourne. We had a lot of hip hop. So it's a hard question. I like so many different music. Right now I'm listening to a whole lot of the Steel Drivers and Chris Stapleton.
Okay.
But if I had to pick one, it'd be the first CD I ever purchased, and it would be the Metallica Black album.
Okay.
How do you,
far cry from Sam Cooke.
No, but see, that's me. My wife thinks I'm crazy, right? I'll eat dinner and ice cream at the same time, and then I'll have like in my rotation, the Steel Drivers playing bluegrass, Sam Cooke, and Metallica, and I'll just chime into each song, and there's no problem with that, right? I like the different flavors, man. The biggest mistake I ever made when it came to music was I went through that phase in like my 20s where I'm like, oh, I'm done with this music. I'm not going to listen to this anymore. And I just got rid of all my CDs. And I'm like, I don't want these.
Oh.
And then like, I don't like stuff, right? I want my space to be free. Yeah. I'm like, if I wasn't using it, I wanted my space back. And then I started looking for those CDs like 7 years later, like, oh man, where's that like Blood Sugar Sex Magic by the Chili Peppers? I don't have that. And so I had to go out and re-buy all this music. So I've learned that lesson. I won't do that again.
Never throw away music. Never throw away music. Who would you consider to be your role model? I know that's a loaded question.
You mean like somebody that would be famous and well known, or just anybody?
No, it could be anybody in your life. It could be a family member. It could be somebody famous.
So there was a teacher in high school. His name was Mr. Crosby. I actually friends with him on Facebook. He taught high school at Urbana High School in Frederick, Maryland. That's where I went to high school. And I played football. And I was on the state championship football team. I was an athlete, and so everybody would assume I would pick my football coach. But Mr. Crosby was my history teacher, and I just had so much respect for him, right? Because I grew up really poor, and I was homeless at times in my life. And so expectations were never really high on me, right? And I think a lack of expectations is why some people fall through the cracks. So when I ended up moving to Frederick with my grandmother and ended up in Urbana High School, from day one, Mr. Crosby pointed out that I had a talent and I was an intelligent person, and he had expectations for me and he treated me that way. And I always respected that. And, there was a time, so I was on the mock trial team, which is like, you get like a case and you pretend to be a lawyer and you have witnesses. It's great. And I was also on the academic team, but one year I was really busy. I was working on a farm. I used to have jobs while I did all these extracurriculars because I needed money. And I was like, Mr. Crosby, I'm not doing it this year. And one morning he met me at the back door going into school. And he said, Hynes, here's the book. You're going to be the detective this year. Practice is Thursday. And he just walked away. And it was like, cause he knew, and I loved it. And it was like, I'm so glad that he did that, but he always made me like be the better me. And I'll always respect him for that. So Mr. Crosby, Norm Crosby, if you see this, thank you.
Shout out to Mr. Crosby.
Yes, sir.
So the final thing that I like to ask, and this goes back to the casino. Now, I don't know if you're a gambling person. I'm a degenerate. I'll say that. I'll put my hand up right now.
Okay.
But if you walk into the casino, what's the one game you want to play?
I'm not a gambling person.
Yeah.
I didn't have a lot of money growing up, so I've always been very specific about making sure I put my money in a fiscally responsible way, right? But I would be lying if I would say I wouldn't have some fun. I think let me say two. Number one, I would probably go sit in the grandstands and have a drink and try to put some money on a horse just for the experience of like what my wife's mom went to Kentucky. So the Derby's been a big thing in our family. So being able to put my jacket on and go sit up in the stands and, drink a drink and watch the horse racing, even without the money aspects, that would be cool. But if I had to pick a table game, I really fell in love with roulette when I was in Las Vegas with friends. I don't know why. I hit a couple times early on, right? You put your bets out and I hit a couple times and it paid for my trip. And I don't know, it was exciting. It was thrilling to me. I know my odds weren't great, but I don't know, it hooked me. It was exciting.
I will say that I've lost a lot of money at roulette tables in my life, so I don't feel good about that. But
well, let me start by saying I prefer the electronic one.
Me too.
Because you can just repeat bet. I don't want to have to keep. That's just so much work. I'm trying to have fun. I like the repeat bet button. But you can get in trouble with the repeat bet button.
Oh, I know. Well, I grew up pretty poor too. So when I go, I'll bet like $1. I guess the minimum's I think $5 or $10 for the roulette. Right. So I'll do that and then just watch everybody else as they win all this money.
Yeah, but you can turn $1 into like $30, right?
I know. Yeah, and that to me is a huge win. It's a huge win.
I told my friend I have a system, and he goes, "Come on now." I said, "No. Here's my system. I'm bringing $100 to bet to Vegas. If I win 50, that goes in my pocket. My system is I'm always going home with something. There's no, you're not. That's the only way you can do it, right? Like, and so that's the only system that works because it's like I'm gonna make sure I go home with something, but I'm not gonna lose more than $100.
Well, this has been a lot of fun, Jeff. I really appreciate it. Is there a way people can contact you? Do you have a campaign website?
I do. So let me get this right. You can contact me at Jeff Hynes. That's my last name is Hynes right up here, jeffhynes.com. And on my website, I'll have links to my Instagram page, my Facebook page. You can get me on my email, which is jeff4charlestown@gmail.com. You'll also see my phone number. I got a cell phone for the campaign, so you can text me or I want to hear from everybody. And that number is 681-258-0196. I won't promise I'm going to answer right away because kids and campaigning in life. But if you leave a message, I have returned calls. I will return calls. I certainly want to hear from everybody. Get out and vote.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Jeff. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.